up, everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. I'm just trying to ignore what's going on in the background and stuff. I'm actually at the gym right now. I just got done training my clients. And I want to shoot this video before I leave because when I sit on stuff and I don't do it right away, it's not that I forget about it, but I lose the passion for it. And I kind of, my ADD, I'm on to other things. And I feel like I need to make the points. You guys know how I am. I shoot the videos as soon as I can while it's fresh in my mind. And I don't like to come up with some kind of dialogue and stuff. I like to be shooting from the heart and from the hip. So I want to talk to you guys about something that, again, I said this. I put this out years ago and was made fun of by all of the scientific community. And now, one of the scientific community, their very own, Lane Norton, Dr. Lane Norton. I need to, again, pre-address this again before the video, that I don't have a problem with Lane. I actually think he's a good dude and I actually admire the fact that he's out there doing his thing. And he's been consistently doing his thing, not paying attention to whatever else is going on. And he's being very successful with what he's doing. So doing your thing your way, I can appreciate. So that being said, he was one of the ones that always said calories in, calories out. All calories are the same. It's all about energy expenditure and stuff like that. I just watched a video of his because I do follow him. Like, I don't think that he's a bad guy. I think his information is good and I follow him. I do pay attention to his stuff. In the new video he just put out about fat loss and whether you're on a high fat diet or a low carb diet or whatever the case may be, or a high carb diet, that pretty much if you're on a high carb or a low carb diet, you're going to burn the same amount of fat. You're going to lose the same amount of body fat. And it doesn't matter whether you use the carbs or you're eating carbs or fats. And I was watching this video going, okay, let me see what he has to say, because he really likes to keep up with the stuff that's pretty modern and up to date. And one of the things that I noticed was, for the first time that I ever saw him really hammer this home, he said plain and simple that he didn't want to say all calories are created equal. And that I really kind of stepped back and I'm like, that's what I said. And that's what people made fun of me for. And he took shots at me too back in the day, which is fine. I mean, back in the day, a lot of people took shots at me, but I took shots at them too. But it's just not where we're at now with our lives. And he actually said that protein and fiber are not the same thing as carbohydrates and fats calorie-wise. They play a much bigger role in how your body metabolizes things and works, period. And that's the first time I've actually heard him put protein and fiber above the other calories. It's always been calories in, calories out. And excuse me, I've heard him say, like, if I want to save some pizza for later in my macros, it's all just calories. As long as I hit the calories, I'm going to be okay. So if I feel like eating pizza later, I'll skip this meal over here and I'll have pizza later on and stuff like that. And now it's changing. Little by little, we're seeing the change. Now, again, many of these scientific guys that were around 5 years ago are gone. Ian McCarthy, Ian McParptart, they used to call him, is gone. Like, many of these guys are gone, but many of the scientific community are starting to change their ideas also, because truly they're in, I want to really express this because Lane hasn't gotten to this yet. And I don't think he has. Maybe he's come up with the concept, so he understands the concepts, but I don't think he's delved into how this works, because there's not a ton of research on it. But many people have different metabolisms and body chemistries, that some people are quote unquote carb sensitive. For some reason, their bodies don't utilize carbohydrates very efficiently. Other people are very fat sensitive. They need very low amounts of fat. Now, I also believe that the studies that he was looking at, the person who was eating 100 grams of fat, they consider that a high fat diet. Now, for me, I don't really believe in the high fat diet. I believe in a moderate fat diet. So for me, they were using 100 grams. I'd probably say 70 to 50 grams of fat would be sufficient. I don't really think anybody needs 100 grams and over, unless you're a really big person. If you are, you probably don't need that much fat. But the bottom line is, there's going to be some people out there that their bodies don't respond well to carbohydrates. I've seen it with athletes throughout the years. I've seen how my body responds to fat and carbs both the same way. And I've had clients that respond completely different than how I respond. So I understood from an early age that the metabolisms are different, the body chemistry is different, the biology is different. So therefore, we can't all say, well, you can do fat or carbs. Like, that was his take home, was you can just make sure you hit your protein and your fiber. And then if you want to use carbs because you like carbs and you'll adhere to it, do that. If you want to do high fat because you adhere to that better, do that. Whatever you can adhere to better in the long run is going to be what works best for you. Now, that's not necessarily true. There are a lot of people out there that like carbohydrates a lot and they don't like to eat high fatty foods, but they're carb sensitive, which means their body, for some reason, and I don't know all the mechanisms because I'm not a scientist, nor do I claim to be, but I can see the phenomenon over and over again happening in certain individuals. I actually had one client that this person tried and tried and tried, and they were a competitor. They were a very good competitor, and they did win shows and stuff like that, but they never got that conditioning that would take them to the next level. And when we started working together, first thing I did was I looked at what was going on. I was like, that individual, when they would eat carbohydrates, and I'm not talking about fat and junk and all kinds of crappy other foods that, just sugar. I'm talking about a carbohydrate. If you gave them sweet potatoes, for instance, they would retain water in their face. They'd retain water in their hands. They'd feel kind of sluggish. Okay, let's give them rice. Same effect from rice. Okay, you're not diabetic. Your blood sugar is fine. We're testing your blood sugar. It's metabolizing fine, going up and down. It's controlled. So what the hell is going on? Don't really know. Now what we do is remove the carbohydrates from the diet and put them on a keto diet. And the keto diet was the exact same calories. The macros changed. We pulled the carbs out, added fats, added some more protein. Calories were the same. Lo and behold, this person not only got lean, but they went on to place. First of all, they won back-to-back overalls in one show. They took the whole show, all the fucking trophies, just destroyed everybody. Every show they did, they were winning. Went to the national level, did well at the national level, went to the Arnold, got third or fourth at the Arnold. Like, this person was nailing it once we switched from the high-carb diet to the high-fat diet, or I should say keto diet. And it really boiled down to the person was sensitive to carbs for whatever reason. And if they ate carbohydrates, their body responded a certain way right away. Where there are other people that eat fats, they feel bloated. They feel like they're not digesting well. Some people, saturated fats don't do well at all. They got to go poly and monounsaturated. I prefer poly and monounsaturated in my high-fat diets because they metabolize easier and better. They're easier to be used for energy. But at the same time, there's going to be people out there that can't use either one. They're going to go really low fat, like this study that Lane was talking about. 17 grams of fat was in that diet. Now, I don't know many science-based individuals that would say 17 grams of fat is healthy for an individual. I mean, we've seen people drop down very low fat, and sure enough, their hair falls out, their skin gets bad, they can't digest fat-soluble vitamins. Bad shit happens when your fat's too low. So now I step back and go, okay, well, you proved the point that if you go low enough fats, you can lose the same amount of weight if you did a high-fat diet and low carbs, right? Because when you do low carbs, you're probably eating, if you do keto, you're 30 grams and under. Low carb to me would be 100 grams and under. So if you're eating 100 grams of fat and under, that would be considered low fat, because high fat is 100 grams. It was very confusing as to what they consider high and low fat and high and low carbs, right? So he talked about 400 grams of carbs. To me, that's a high carb diet. 400 grams is a high carb diet. Other people would think 400 grams is a moderate carb diet because their bodies utilize carbs in a different way. We watched Jay Cutler eat 1,100 grams of carbohydrates a day. And we watched these other bodybuilders that were the same size, couldn't eat anywhere close to that. Jay actually got to take in less protein. He'd taken 275 grams of protein at 320 pounds. Other guys at 190 pounds are taking 250 grams. They're taking almost as much as Jay, and they're eating more calories. So if you really sat down and think about everything that Lane is saying, they ran a study. Now the next study should be take individuals that all respond differently and find out why the fuck they respond differently, because there's going to be all different versions of those people, everything in between. So people will be like carb sensitive or fat sensitive, I guess you would call it. And there'll be different degrees of that everywhere in between. And once we understand that, then we're going to understand how to apply diets. Like Lane said straight out, you might calculate your macros on an online calculator and they're not right. Well, how the fuck are you supposed to figure out what's going on? Like, if calories are not the answer and you can't get a caloric calculator online to calculate them right, how are you supposed to do it? And then he said, well, most people under track 50%. 50%. Now, I don't know if he's talking to the general public, but I don't know one competitor or anybody seriously in the fitness industry that would under track or under report their food by 50%. There might be one meal out of 5 that might be off a little bit, but that'd be like, what, 10%? Not 50%. So I'm not really sure where these numbers come from or who they're dealing with, or it's the average person or it's somebody who's never worked out, starting to work out. I don't know who these people are that they get for these studies, but I've definitely seen a difference in people that have only been training a couple years, people that have been training 10 years. I've seen their bodies throughout that time. When they start training, their bodies respond a certain way. 5 years later, their bodies respond in a different way. 5 years later, their bodies respond in a different way, and they're not really gaining muscle or losing fat. Their bodies are pretty much staying stagnant, but their bodies are responding to diets different ways. So even individual chemistry and biology changes as you're training, as you're dieting, as you get older. Like, everything changes. There's so many variables that I think people try to dumb it down to calories in, calories out, and they try to say, well, this is the starting point. Well, Lane just said there is no starting point over there. You don't have the calculator that does it right. You could have fats, you could have carbs. What if you're carb sensitive? That's me saying that on top of what Lane said. What if you're carb sensitive? Then you have to pick fats, right? No, you can pick carbs. Well, then you have zero progress or so little that you get frustrated and you can't adhere to it because you like carbs. So it's not just about what you like. Well, Lane said if people like carbs, they can eat carbs. What if they like carbs and their body's not responding to it? Do you suggest that they still keep eating it? No, you go, well, fuck, it's not working. Let's change it. Now you can't eat the carbs. You're carb sensitive. So therefore, Now that has to change. Now that takes what he was talking about. You can use one or the other. Not everybody will be able to use one or the other interchangeably. That's not how that works. Some people, yes, but not everyone. This study was one study that he quoted, and we don't even know the variables as to how big the people were, what their training was, anything like that. We don't even know technically what really happened in that study because he didn't really talk about it. But the things that I'm saying now need to be looked at. And again, Broz and science, I feel like we're coming together. I honestly do. Like, I'm watching Lane's stuff. He's saying the things that I said 2 years ago, 3 years ago that everybody's telling me I was fucking nuts for saying. You know, him and his friends actually made fun of me before for saying the things that I was saying. Not so much Lane, but some of his boys really fucked with me for the shit I was saying. Now here we are 5 years later and everybody's coming around saying, no, I didn't mean that. Protein was the same as fats and carbs calorically. What I meant was, no, you didn't say what you meant. What you said, it's all about calories, calories in, calories out, caloric deficit, caloric expenditure. It was all calories. Now, two forms of those calories, fiber and protein, have been excluded. So you're only left with two other forms of calories, fats and carbohydrates. How long before those two then get found out by science and broken down even further to understand how different people respond to those two different macronutrients energy-wise? I think it's coming. I think it's going to be soon. I think they're really looking into this more and more. And I think that what we need to do is not stay stagnant and rest on our laurels and keep pushing to learn more, because it doesn't matter what you say, how scientific you are, how bro you are. We have seen different people respond to different diets, and that's just a fact. And it doesn't mean that one's right or one's wrong. It means their body chemistry worked one way and someone else's body chemistry worked another way. And to be a good trainer, a good coach, you need to realize that different people's bodies respond different ways. You can't simply just go with, we'll figure out some calories and go from there. It doesn't work that way. It's a very short-term fix, and most people don't get the results they want by counting the calories and just going by one standard. And if they do start to get the results, they can't maintain them. The body adapts and you can't maintain it. It is about causing hormonal changes through food. Protein, what does that cause hormonally? That causes your body to increase protein synthesis to maintain your muscle mass or build muscle mass. Carbohydrates, when you eat those, what happens? More insulin is pushed out, right? That's another hormone that changes. Now, when you eat fats, what happens? The insulin is dropped, right? Lane even talked about that. Now, I've heard people say that that's bullshit. They say that lower insulin does not mean less fat storage or more fat burnt. Lane just said in his video, less insulin means less stored fat when you're eating, a lower lower fat diet, a low carb diet. So I'm sitting there kind of going, it's like pieces being mixed up with the stuff that I was talking about that I understood. And the part that pisses me off the most is if I don't pronounce something right, and I'm from Rhode Island, I pronounce a lot of things wrong. And it's not because I don't know how to say them, it's because that's how I was raised pronouncing things. When they tell us as a kid to sound the word out if you can't say it, when I sound it out with a Rhode Island accent, and it doesn't sound like somebody who's from Missouri or California or anywhere else, and you get made fun of for it. Understanding how these systems work and understanding how to put a diet together and get somebody to respond to it, you don't have to know every single word. You don't have to know every single process. You have to know, if I do this, this happens. And I do this and this happens again. And I do this and this happens again. I'm able to replicate that over and over again. And that fact means that works somehow. Do I need to know? No. All I need to know is that I can do it by doing this and that happens. Which I think, people would call that, the person's dumb for doing that. But realistically, let's be 100% honest with ourselves. The people that are really progressing and doing really well don't really know anything about science. All of our top Olympia people, and you go, they're on drugs. They're all on drugs. Matter of fact, most of the gym rats in general are on more drugs than half the pro bodybuilders on. They don't have the same build and stuff as them. They're too busy counting macros and worrying about calories and all this other shit, where these other guys are just in there pushing, eating, and training, and their bodies are growing. So you don't have to know every single little thing about everything to get results. You don't have to know how to pronounce every word before you start a program or start a diet. What you have to do is understand the concepts and say, okay, if I eat lower carbohydrates, my insulin is lower, I'll store less fat, but am I carb sensitive? That's the question. You have to find that out next. Then you move into the high fat, or I want to say high fat, but the fat-based diet, the low carb diet. And now you say high fat, is it 100 grams? Is it 200 grams? I know people like 300 grams of fat because they think that's the high fat diet and they're not losing weight. Of course you're not. You're eating too much fat. There's no way you're going to burn that. You just don't burn that much in general. You use an online calculator to calculate something and then jack the fats up to 300 grams. Of course it's not going to work. So in closing, guys, again, you can probably hear the music in the other room. They got another class going on in there. But I just wanted to throw that out there real quick, that I was impressed that Lane actually took the protein and the fiber and separated it from the other macros. I was impressed that he talked about insulin making a difference, whether or not you're storing fat or not, because these are things that they didn't talk about before. Now, the next thing will be poly and monosaturated versus saturated fats, as well as what would happen if your protein was where it needed to be and your carbohydrates were low and the fat was moderate. That's where people usually wind up getting the best results on a low carb diet, not a high fat diet. That's not the same thing. So from here, where do we go? I think that we need to just keep working together, not arguing, not pointing fingers at each other, not pissing each other off, not calling each other names, working together to get this shit figured out. And I actually absolutely invite anyone that wants to do a Skype. I don't want to say a debate because there's nothing to debate. We're trying to find information to help everyone and ourselves. We're not trying to debate and prove who's right and who's wrong. We're trying to do things where we can help everybody and put more information out there that has, this is the result and this is why. The bros will get the result and the science should back it up with this is why. But what we're having is, this is the result. Well, fuck that. That can't be a result because that doesn't happen because science says this. What we need to be doing still is working together so we can bridge that gap. And I think that we're going to push the means of human physiology in athletics so much farther, so much faster without drugs if we just work together and figure out how these things are working. BicePstrength@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. BicePstrength.com is a blog. It's the Let's Work Together Bicep, and we are